Hello, Chocolate Chasers. I'm Mr. Spork, and these are Mr. Spork's hands. I'm sorry I missed you last week. Had a few technical difficulties up here, but thanks to some very helpful warranty elves, we're back on track. During my downtime, though, I found myself wandering around the grocery aisles, which I've been known to do because, quite frankly, I'm just that weird. And I was staring at the convenience baking products, I should say. We're talking about things like cake mixes and muffin mixes, which really don't make any sense to me. And then I got to looking closely at the brownie mixes, and those are very pretty pictures on the box, and I'm sure that's what's selling a lot of those things. But when you flip it over, you realize you got to add your own egg and oil anyway. So, I mean, come on, what are you really paying for but a little bit of flour, sugar, salt, and baking powder? If you can operate one of these, there's no reason for you to pay $2 or $3 for a box of that. Basically, buy the ingredients pure, it's more flexible, and you get to do crazy things in the middle of them. And that's what I'm going to do here today. Doing a batch of brownies. I've made brownies a million times. More people should really make them because they're simpler than cakes, simpler than even cookies almost. But I was thinking about flavors, and I thought, you know, coffee and chocolate go together really well. If you've ever had a mocha, you know that. And chocolate and orange go together really well. If you've ever had a chocolate orange at Christmas, you've probably eaten one of those crazy wacko oranges that you bash on the counter to split open. And if you've had a good stir fry, you know that chili and orange go together really well. Hot chili we're talking about here. So I thought, why not get all of those together into one big party in a pan and make some crazy flavored brownies. Now again, my brownie recipe I'm going to show you today, I've done a million times, but then we're going to do a little bit of crazy experimentation that I've never tried before at the end. So you can decide how far you want to take this. We're going to go in with some melted butter. That's, oh, I don't know, about 50, 60 grams worth. All these details, all the recipe measurements and stuff will be out on my website. Just click on that link up there and you can get to it. I'm going to go in with some good cocoa powder. I like using the cocoa powder because you don't have to worry about melting it over the double boiler, that sort of thing. I'm going to go in with some sugar, because sugar, for those of you that pay attention, know that sugar is usually treated as a liquid ingredient. I'm just going to get these worked together for a bit. And then I'm going to go in with a freshly pulled shot of espresso. This came right out of my espresso machine just a few seconds ago. If you don't have an espresso machine, you can get really good quality espresso crystals. You can make some really strong coffee, or I suppose you could trot down to your local coffee store with a bowl of batter and say, hey, could you put a shot in here? Whatever it takes, get some fresh coffee in there. Chocolate and coffee always kind of give each other a springboard to work from. I think the chocolate, the coffee is kind of the base for the chocolate to work off of. So I know that ratio, and that works really well even in my regular brownies. Got some oil to go in here. I don't use all butter because it's a lot more expensive, and the oil seems to give it a little bit more stability. So this is going to get stirred until well combined, as they say. And now for one of my crazy flavors, I've got anywhere from 1 to 3 teaspoons of chili, but I'm not going to put all of it. I just want to put a tiny little hint in the batter itself. I'll show you where the rest of that's going in a minute. Get that stirred in, and basically just stir this till it's smooth. If it's being a little bit lumpy, you might get the whisk out. You might even just toss it into the microwave for a few seconds to melt things down if you need to remelt that butter. But do any of that before you go in with a couple of eggs, because obviously you don't want to cook the eggs. I got 2 eggs from Very Happy Chickens going in here. Get that stirred together, and just a tiny touch of vanilla. I put vanilla in just about everything, including some of my coffee drinks. And only because I wanted to really go through the whole batter easily, and I'm not going to bother with a sifter. I've got about half a teaspoon of good sea salt. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there. Get this stirred together. And then got some flour and baking powder. Those I am going to go ahead and put together dry first. I'm going to use probably a flat teaspoon, if you will. You don't want a whole lot of rise, and that's one thing in making brownies. The texture between the cakey and the fudgy spectrum is pretty broad, and the difference that makes that change is the amount of fat ratio. So you got to play around with the fat ratios. Again, you'll see what I'm using on those measurements out in the recipe, but alter that if you want them a little bit cakier or a little bit fudgier. But in all cases, the one thing you don't want to do is overbake brownies. Overbake brownies are going to be dry and crumbly, and you know, like I say, you're not making a cake. Brownies are meant to be a little more, what's the word, chewy, gummy. No, that's a bad word. You know what I'm trying to say. It's a texture thing. So I'm going to get this fully mixed. And what I've got for my pan over on the side, this is a standard 9-inch pan. And what you want to do is make yourself a foil sling, because it's going to make it a lot easier to pull them out. So just regular foil lined. I don't bother with the sides because this is nonstick. But the main thing is that this is a dark pan. Dark holds the heat better, and it's really nice and thick and heavy, and that's what you want for good brownies. It's well worth investing. I think a really good pan at my local mega store wasn't but about $6 or $7. It's a good investment to spend the extra $2 instead of getting a cheap $3 one. So now that I've got this batter pretty well mixed, here's where I'm going to go a little experimental and rogue on you. I'm going to put in about half of this and spread that out along the bottom. If you don't want to be experimental, you just put it all in there and bake. We're at a 350 Fahrenheit, what is that, 175 Celsius, if I'm not mistaken. That oven's been preheating for a few minutes. There's the base. And my experimental with the rest of this chili, and I'm going to use, this is probably another teaspoon and a half, something like that. I'm going to go into 1/2 cup of orange marmalade. You guys that watch regularly know I made this myself. You can go find that video down below in the link section. I'm going to mix the orange marmalade with this chili. I hope this works. I like all these flavors individually, but you know, sometimes when you put them together, they don't work out that well. We'll see. And instead of putting or trying to put a whole layer, which is just going to make a mess, I'm going to make 9 little blobs and get those right where I think they're going to be. The reason I want to know where this is, one of the reasons I should say, is that when I go to test these for doneness, I don't want to stick a toothpick in the middle of the orange marmalade, because the sugar, I think, I'm guessing here, but I think the sugar would read a whole lot hotter than the surrounding batter. So I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally run into that. And now we're going to put the rest of the batter over the top. Have to be a little bit careful here so I don't disturb them. And there we go, that's ready to go into the oven again, 350, 175 Celsius. And we want these to not be completely dry in the middle, so I'm going to aim for something around 20-25 minutes and then check them. I'm back almost exactly 24 minutes later today. That's what it was today. It's going to vary a little bit depending on your oven, of course, anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes. Make sure you do check them regularly. You don't want a toothpick to come out clean. You want it to still be basically a little bit dirty with just a few crumbs. If you pull it out when it comes out cleanly, you've already gone probably 5 or 10 minutes too long, so don't do that. But I do want these to stop cooking right now, so I'm going to go ahead and unsling them, put them on a cooling rack. I'm going to cut into them and taste them for you in just a second. Another 10 minutes of cooling later to let them set. We're going to cut into these and see how this experiment went. I'm as excited as you are, because I'm just that easily excited. Trying to get it into 9 squares, about where I put those blobs of orange marmalade. And there we go. Still a little bit creamy and chewy. I like the way that turned out, the way that's set up. I'm going to give it a taste. Oh man. Oh, that's a winner. Now, you know why people do any kind of crazy, I got a mouthful of brownie here, any kind of crazy thing in a brownie, because it's the perfect carrier. I've seen cream cheese and peanut butter and mushroom soup and all kinds of other weirdness thrown into brownies. This is why just about anything you put in there tastes good. So I can now confirm for you that the chili orange espresso combination perfectly works in a brownie. I think you ought to go make some. I do appreciate you guys liking and thumbs up and book tweety spacing and all that other crazy stuff. If you need the recipe details, please do up to my website. You can get all of the information, the measurements and such you need there. And please, if you haven't, do subscribe, because that's how you're going to stay in the loop, get all my craziness from up here in Canada. I do appreciate it as always. I will see you next time with some new things from the kitchen up here in Canada. Cheers.